Hello guys, and welcome back to this C++ tutorial series. So in the last video we talked about variables, and we said we're going to be doing demos of how to use those variables in our programs. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. We're going to be demonstrating how to use the integer type first. So we said the integer type is used to store whole numbers, which means numbers without fractions, and they can be positive or negative. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to try to talk about how to declare it and how to give it values. So for those who are using Visual Studio, do not worry that I'm using a different IDE today. It's all the same. The code is going to be the same. What I want you to do is I want you to make a new project, give it a name just like I showed you how. Give it a different, any name that you want, and you must get the same code in the end. And then once you do that, we can continue. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to remove this line of code here, line number 7, that says cout hello world, because we don't need this anymore. We are done with the hello world program, so we delete it. Now, we're going to talk about, first of all, how to declare the integer variable. So we're going to talk about declaration, and we spoke in the last video and said that you specify the type first, then you give it a name, whichever name you want, and then that's it, right? So to declare, let's say, a variable that is called let's call it age, because integers are numbers. You're just going to specify the type, which is int in this case, then the name, which is age, and then just like that you've declared it. And then this is very simple. You want to declare a variable to hold something that is of integer type, you just say int age. If it's I don't know, if it's maybe oranges or apples, or I don't know, dollars, int dollars, int apples, int whatever you want to name it. And then, but this doesn't help us much because we want to give values to these variables. That's where we talk about what is called initialization. So now we're going to talk about variable initialization for integers, and that also is not even difficult. It's basically just giving it a value, but there are three ways that you could do it in C++. The first one is called C type or C like initialization, because it borrows its format from the C language, which is kind of a predecessor for C++. So we're going to demonstrate C like or C type initialization first. Initialization, and how that goes about is that you write the type as usual, then the name, and then you put an equal sign, then you give the value. And let's declare a second variable called age2. So you say int age2, then you put an equal sign, and then you put in the value. Maybe this person is 23 years old, let's just put 23, and just like that you've managed to initialize your variable called age2 with the number 23. And this is called C like initialization. And in the last program you saw that we displayed hello world by using cout, and we said that cout is how you display stuff to the screen in C++. So let's just display this age2 to see if it actually contains 23. So all you have to do is type cout, then put this left facing angle brackets that we talked about, and then you write in age2, and then you put them again and put end. So this end line here that you have here basically is used to say new line, so that whatever we print out next will be on a separate line. So let's just run this. In your IDE, it's F5 for Visual Studio. For this one here, you just basically click here, this run. And as you can see, we have 23 displayed here, and that's basically how you display the variables to the console. And then we talked about C like initialization, but there's also another way that you could give 23 to this h2 variable. So we're going to make another variable called h3 and initialize it differently. The second way that you could initialize the integer type in C++ is called so this one is called constructor initialization. So we're going to demonstrate constructor initialization, and how that goes about is almost the same. You basically put the type and then the name, and then now instead of putting an equal sign and then a value, you use parentheses, right? And then you put in the number that you want to initialize with, which is basically the value of the variable. like this, then semicolon, you're done. Here semicolon as well. So how do we do that? Let's declare a second variable called h3. Let's call it int h3, and then in parentheses let's give it, maybe this one is 43 years, so we just put 43 in there. Then let's print it out to see, if we've managed to do it. So h3 and then end line, and that's like that. Let's run it, and then so you can see 43 is printed on a new line after 23. So just to so that you guys can also get like some extra knowledge about printing stuff, you can print stuff, many stuff together, just by separating them with these angle brackets. So let's say, for instance, we want our program to show us which variable we're actually printing at that point in time. So all we have to do is come here, and then we put in quotes, just like the hello world, we put a string that says h2, because we want to print h2, and then we want to print h2, and this value will be here. So as you can see, basically what I did is that I put in a string. This is a string because it's many characters that I want to print alongside this h2. Then the next line comes, and for this h3 I'll do the same thing, because we want to see what we are printing, so that we can basically separate everything. So let's run it again, and now you see that there is h2 23, h2 43. I should have changed this to 3 because it's h3. Okay, and then now the third method to initialize is called uniform initialization. And what is uniform initialization? I'm going to show you. So it's called uniform initialization, and basically how it goes is you basically put in the type, right, and then the name, right, and then you put in, instead of using parentheses, now you use these again, these angle brackets. These are braces. So you're just going to say, let's declare maybe h4. So int h4, and then you put this, and then you give it maybe 100. This person is 100 years old. And then let's print it out as well as h4. Let's just copy this code, put it here, and then h4, run it. And now you see h4 is there, is 43. No, we printed h3 here. We're supposed to put h4. Okay, and then we print. Now you see h4 is 100. So these are the three ways that you can initialize the integer variable in C++. You don't even have to know all of them. Most of the time, programmers just basically use this first one here. Just say int h2 is equal, and that is what is simple. And that's what we're going to continue with in this tutorial. So we're just going to remove this code. We don't need this anymore. And then, also delete age, because we don't need this anymore. So now we have h2, which is equal to 23. And the next thing we are going to talk about is the fact that in the last tutorial, we said that variables had ranges. For integer type, it cannot store, an infinite amount of numbers. It has a limit. So let's just demonstrate what would happen if you put a number that is bigger than usual. First of all, let's say you put a number that is, let's say you put, let's just make a fictional number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then 1. And let's try to print it out. It's called h2. So let's print it out. And as you can see, we have the whole number here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1. But imagine we added another digit. Let's put in 3 there and see what we print out. As you can see, now the number that is coming out is wrong, because this variable here has a limit. It can't store numbers that are bigger than 10 digits that we had put in the first place. So that's one thing that you need to be careful about when you are deciding which variable to use. If you're basically going to be using an integer, know that you can't store an infinite amount of numbers. That goes for negative numbers as well, because we can store negative numbers in this variable. If we put a negative sign here and try to store this in this variable, as you can see, it came out way wrong. It's positive, but it's wrong, because it's just garbage coming from the computer, because it can't store this number. But if you had put negative, let's say negative 3000, everything would still work fine. And as you can see, negative 3000 is printed. So that's one thing that you need to make sure that you understand when you are declaring any variable. If you're going to use the int type, make sure that in your program numbers are not going to exceed certain limits. For the limit, the actual specific number, the biggest number that the int type can store, I advise you to go online and search that, because that is actually going to help you to read up some stuff about integers and understand more about them in C++. So this is basically how you declare the int type in C++ and how you assign numbers to it, and printing it is as simple as printing the all the other stuff that we've been printing. So in the next video, we'll demonstrate, the double type, which is basically the type that can store numbers with fractions.